Well, hello folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective. And what does that mean, neoclassical? We're looking at supply and demand as seen on the charts, and we're observing and understanding what it means to be trend, qualified trend. And so neoclassical are those two things. That's what we do here. And we do it nightly, 4 times a week. Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. We archive it on YouTube under the channel L.A. Little. So it's going to be a short show in terms of summary, what's happening, that type of stuff, because nothing's happening. This is probably going to be the smallest range trade week of the year. The high-low of the range during the week on the various indexes is probably going to be as low or lower than any other range this year by the time we end on Friday. Friday, I'm sure it's going to be dead after the first couple hours. Everybody wants that last weekend of the summer before they pack it in and do the winter thing, the fall and winter thing. So if you look at what happened today, it was absolutely nothing. It was a dearth of activity. You had like 2 moves intraday. That was about it. Composite flat, NDX flat, industrials basically flat. Russell, that was down almost 1/4%. S&P, that's about as flat as you can get, 10 cents higher. Elsewhere, flat, right? I mean, nothing was moving today. And other than bonds, really nothing moved. And bond, well, the dollar was down 1/4% too, but other than bonds, right, nothing's moving. And bonds just keep walking higher day after day after day. We'll look at that chart here in a minute. But first of all, let's pop over, take a look at the charts, see what we got. Last night we actually had, they weren't good signals, but they were okay signals for some sort of a pullback potentially. But right now it's nothing doing. It's just not happening. It's just not there. And if we look at the S&P 500, let me see here. We're going to have to blow this up so you can see it. All right, so in the S&P 500, if we look at it, right, we pop up and get to a higher high yesterday, back under. It was an over-under because it was higher volume. So it wasn't a 2-bar, right, which is the better signal. It was just an over-under. So we do come down a little bit today. We do a doji. We actually closed 10 cents higher. So what? Doesn't really matter. Doesn't change anything really. If I look at the NASDAQ, right, the NASDAQ gets over the high, 45.75, barely, right, 20 cents or so. Underneath it, less volume. After an extended move, 2-bar reversal. How many 2-bar reversals are we going to see? Given the dearth of activity, given the fact that there's almost no news tomorrow, domestically, there is some news internationally, mostly CPI, PPI type numbers in Europe. I suspect it just isn't going to matter, and they're just going to hang up here. It is a 2-bar reversal, so there is the possibility of some sort of sideways to down action. NDX. Last 4 days, you've basically had 4 dojis. 3 specifically, and the 4th one, it's in the works. Basically that was a 4th one. So 2 inside days. I'm pretty sure it was inside day today. 40.79. Yeah, stayed inside. So inside day, no change here in volume or anything. Nothing happening. Dow Jones. Remember, the Dow was the only one that gave us a 2-bar reversal last night, and yeah, it did go sideways, but that's about it. And matter of fact, it ended up higher on the day, even though it was sideways inside bar. So here we are testing these highs, trying to get over them. 17,150, 156. We got up to 17,122 on the close, 30 points below it. It's probably going to hang. Russell, And this hang stuff is going to get old because almost everything is doing it. The Russell gets over, back under, 2-bar reversal. It's not, the angle of ascent here is not quite what you're seeing elsewhere. So when I look at this and say, okay, is this a 2-bar? It's debatable. It's almost a 45-degree angle. The others are like this. So the Russell not nearly as extended. Of course, it's been the weakest. To get a 2-bar here, maybe we'll get some sort of a pullback, but I wouldn't hold my breath. So that's the indexes, and for the most part, the indexes are telling us that, yeah, we've got some possibilities, some down action coming tomorrow, but folks, right now, I don't think it matters. It's just there's no activity. There's no. What was the volume today? Lower. Well, it wasn't as low as a couple of other days recently, but I mean, this is really no volume down here, and you're getting, I watched the futures charts, and I'm seeing futures trading. Let me pull up one of these. I'll look at the S&P, for example. I'll just look on a 15-minute bar. Usually I'll see 100,000, 120,000. What did I see today? Today we did, and that's at the beginning of the day. Today we did 57. That's like 70% less volume, 60% less volume. There's just nothing out there. And the markets aren't doing anything as a result of it. Now overseas, we actually have, to complement a couple 2-bar reversals in our indexes, we actually have something that looks like it's going to try to trade lower, and that's the European market. So if we look at Europe, you got an over-under on the DAX, a little bit higher volume, but it was a failure on this breakdown bar. So the DAX comes into this breakdown bar right here, right, trades over it, back under it, right, fails, doesn't have the volume. That looks like, this bar here actually, that looks like that's going to try to pull back tomorrow. And if I look over at the CACs, the CACs is doing the same thing. It looks like a over-under 2-bar reversal. The ascent has gotten more steep here lately. Again, this is debatable whether it's a 2-bar or whether it's just an over-under, but it did get up there, got into resistance, failed, came back, less volume. So that one looks to try to trade sideways to down. And that's about it in terms of weakness. FTSE's going to try to test that swing point high. And if we look elsewhere at China, the A shares actually came back, but they did some volume into that swing point high. They could go test it again tonight. And the Hong Kong actually came off finally. So we actually had some down move here, back into this swing point high, doing a retest, regenerate off that prior high. It had gotten into it once right here. Now it's coming right back into it, so second time back, takes away some of the juice. It's probably got about a 50-50 chance in terms of holding, although that is a huge bar it's coming back into, so I do suspect it will hold up here, whether it's the top or maybe it makes it down to the bottom this time. Elsewhere, the only other things, let's see here, Nikkei. Nikkei came down, had a little bit more volume, so I suspected I have a little bit more pressure today. And then on the flip side, Taipei goes ballistic on the upside. And it's going back up to test this high at 95.47. And it does it despite having finished off the 2 ABCD structures that were in place inside this. So you had nested ABCD structures. You had one here. That one was finished. Right? And then you had another one right there that also projected and was finished. They both finished in this area. This thing just skyrockets up, gets some volume. It looks like a lot of short covering to me. Probably tries to push a little bit higher again tonight. So that's probably the majority of the juice in these markets. I don't even want to do much with the sectors because almost every sector is hanging at the highs. The only ones of interest that's worth looking at, maybe XLF, that had done a 2-bar reversal last night, comes down with a little bit more volume, may get a little bit more push, but I suspect it comes into this bar, it's going to find buyers. 23.24. And XLV still strong, did go over, back under tonight, but had more volume. So an over under there, but then you have all these others that gave you 2 bars yesterday that are just hanging at the highs. They won't give it up. That's the XLY, and I think that actually that and the XLF are the only two bars. The others actually have just some over unders. So sector wise, really nothing here to tell us anything. If we go over to the OX markets to kind of wrap it up, bonds just continue to power higher. They've been doing this. They continue to do this. Going back, for this high, top of that's 118.36. You're at 118.35 on the close. Going to hit it tomorrow. We'll see if it can take it out. And if you look at it on the weekly, also going to try to make a new high. This thing has ABCD structures in place that have been finished, right? There was one here, it finished off. Now you got another one that's going from here back, and that one projects even higher. So the scenario here, get this open so we can see it. The scenario here is that this wants to go higher and wants to finish off this ABCD structure, and Katie bar the doors, this thing just keeps coming. So that is pretty much a wrap. Silver, gold, really nothing there. I didn't see anything on the bonds outside of that one. The munis just going for higher highs. The junk bonds still at highs. The high quality cap bonds at new highs. Everybody wants some sort of yield. They keep pushing into anything that gives them some yield, and they keep pushing into stocks. So it looks to me like some of the money managers have decided that they're going to just go with the bonds. Maybe that's going to be the end of the bond move when it's done here, but right now it looks like they're trying to balance their portfolios a little bit more. You're seeing less activity in stocks, and you're seeing bonds push higher and higher. All right, if you have questions, stocks you might want to look at, or just general questions, I'll try to answer them. 303-912-9110 if you want to text me. If you want to email me, I would suggest you mail it to support@tatoday.com, and I can pick it up there and take a look at it. And if you have a live stream account, of course you can type it in like I see G. Willie Mann has done. So let's pick up on his and see what he's got here. So he's asking about 3 stocks. Let's see what we got on these guys. So let me pop them up, and we'll take a look at them. So ARWR is the first one. So let's see what this one looks like. So Arrowhead Research. And what are you doing? You're doing a long position over short-term time frame, maybe a month. Okay, thanks for, and I always ask you to give me that information. It helps me help you, so thanks for the information. It does help quite a bit. Okay, so this one's kind of interesting here. So if you look at this, you've actually got a little ABCD structure that just finished on the daily, right? There was one here, and it was very small, and it finished. Now, a lot of people won't count this as an ABCD structure. They'll say, oh, it came back more than, 0.682 of Fibonacci. So what? Who cares? If it comes back and it turns, then it can make this amount here up here, right? I mean, why does it matter if it's more than 0.5 or more than 0.628? I think it's 628, not 682. What does it matter? It doesn't really matter. I mean, that's somebody's rule they made up. Who cares? If it doesn't get lower than the previous one and it turns and goes back up, it can reach the next one. It's that simple. So that's the first thing. So it finished off an ABCD structure. Then it does today, it does a reversal over, under, less volume, right? That says it should try to trade down tomorrow, but it's coming back into decent high volume bar. And you got this high volume bar here. So you actually have a little range here that is probably going to hold it. and it may hold it right here at the top. And you know, if the market for whatever reason finds a way to be a little weak tomorrow, maybe this comes in a little deeper. So I like this setup. It's coming back into a high volume bar here, one here, and then of course the breakout bar with volume. And the fact that it came over under because of this resistance zone up here just simply gives you an opportunity to get in it. Let me take a quick look and see if anything's happening on the weekly. Okay, on the weekly it's also coming into this high, 1573. Got the 63, but it's doing volume into it, so that still looks good too. So yeah, I like it. I think it get that out of my way, and let me go back and grab my other chart. Yeah, I like the setup. I think it's a decent setup. So yeah, I would look for it here in that green zone that you see on the charts. That's about where it's probably going to come back to. Camp. Let's see what camp looks like. So camp. Okay, this one I don't really like on the daily, and I don't like the weekly much either. So I really, you know, and the reason for it is, yeah, you're coming back up. You could make it up into this high. That's what you're probably looking at, 1995. You had a nice big wide price spread bar here, 1891, or you're going to put your stops. You know, how do you trade the backside in case you're wrong? Do you just put it up underneath support here? Odds are you'll get stopped out, or at least the odds are reasonably high that you'll get stopped out. So when you look at it from that perspective, now I'm not so sure it's the kind of trade you want to make. So I'd probably pass on this one. I just don't see the reward risk making sense there. Yeah, it probably makes it to the top of that bar, but I don't see the reward risk. In this Energia, it looks like a South African CPL. It looks like a utility company. Has an ABCD structure in place. So your ABCD is from here, from this bar up, back down and up again, and so that's got a a decent amount to go still. And let me see here, did we test this high already? 1898, 1902. That would have been better if it had tested it, but it didn't. And the weekly, you got a breakout. Yeah, this one looks good. This one also has a nice structure to it. So this appears to me that you're going to make a further push, and this one's probably just going to keep pushing. So this is the sort of one I'd probably go inside the this bar and try to see where the volume is. So somewhere between 1960 to about 1990 probably. And I don't happen to have my other charts up right now, so. But I suspect that's probably the place to try to buy this. Your risk is back to, unfortunately, your risk is back deep, but you've got, let's do the numbers on this right quick. 1727, that's about 40 cents onto that's 42. So if you pick it up around 1960, you're going to make it up to, yeah, then the reward risk works. So you almost need to get it. And a lot of times, when I'm measuring these things up, I look for the projection. I look to see if there's any resistance that's going to stop it, right? And then I take a look at it and say, okay, given all of that, where can this thing trade to? Well, it looks like it can trade up to about 20. What was it? 2040. Let me go back to the daily here. I think it was 2042 or so. 2062, I think we said. So to get into that and have it make sense, I need to get it at X, right? Well, if I can get it at X, then I take it. If I can't, then I simply look for something else, right? Because you want your reward risk to make sense. And there's always plenty of stocks to look at. So if you can get it into that price point somewhere between 60 and 70 cents, 1970, 60, it probably makes sense because your reward risk makes enough sense there. It's a good looking stock. Again, it's reward risk now, not so much the stock. Let's see what the next one is here. JC Penney, huge short interest. Yeah, I bet it is. So let's see what JC Penney looks like. Okay, so if we look at this one, yeah, well, they're squeezing them, aren't they? And they're over multiple swing point highs. This one's going to run up into here, 1296. And your swing point low, can't tell where it is. It was probably over here. So 1296, it's at 1120. And if I go back to the daily, all right, so it's got an ABCD structure. Let's try this again. Whoops, there we go. It's got an ABCD structure from here to there. And that projects up okay, so let's see what those numbers are. 918, that's a buck 36. 1139, so 1140 roughly. You're already at 1124. That's 16 cents more. I think what you're going to see happen here is you know, and because you got short squeeze, you know, I drew this a little bit too far. This actually is about right there. Because you got a short squeeze, you may just finish this off, then get your pullback, and then get the ABCD structure that takes you to the next one. So I would be trying to grab this somewhere around 1078, back down to the bottom of that, which is 1041. And I think 1041 is a pretty safe bet that you won't get very far underneath that, so you could probably stick a stop somewhere around 10. Well, boy, you'd like to stick it underneath this one. I'd probably play it safe or put a stop around 1002 or so. Try to get it around anywhere starting around 1060, excuse me, 1070 down to 1040, and be shooting for about that high, 1296. And it's probably going to take you a pullback to get into that. In other words, spike again tomorrow, then pull back, and then potentially you get your trade on that retrace. Okay? All right, well, you know, the holiday week, low volume, bullish market, hanging at highs. Can we get a retrace? Yeah, anytime. Can you bet on it? No. I said that last night. I said it the night before. I did think that we'd probably get some sort of sideways to down, a little retrace. It's tried and tried, but it can't, because there's not enough volume to push it that way. And every little dip, somebody's holding it up. Now, it doesn't take a lot to hold it up or to push it down right now, but the balance is fairly equal in terms of, you know, what we see in terms of the what am I trying to say? In terms of the balance of buys and sells, right? Because, and I'm going to go back and actually pull up the IXIC. You know, you can see, actually the NDX is the one that shows it the best. You can see all these dojis, right? Doji, doji, doji. Okay, what is that? Well, it says that I tried to push it higher, couldn't. Tried to push it lower, couldn't. Stopped in the middle, right? About where I started. So the buyers and sellers are roughly equal in their strength, right? And we're not talking about much strength here, but they're relatively equal. There's not really much more in the way of buying than there is in the way of selling. That's what a doji tells you. And that's a lot of times why after, you know, a decent move, a doji kind of tells you you might get a reversal. That's what a lot of people will say, it's a reversal bar. Well, it can be, but it doesn't have to be. It just simply says on that day you didn't have more buyers or sellers. They were roughly equal. And I suspect that's going to be true when we look at the weekly bar this week. It's going to be roughly equal. I don't think you're going to see any of these weekly bars. Let me just pop through them. Here's the S&P 500. It's a doji on the weekly. Here's the Dow Jones. That's almost a doji. The index we just looked at is a doji on the weekly. The Russell. I was looking at the wrong one. The Russell actually pushed up. Let me go back to these others because I was flipping charts. Yeah, so that the IXIC is a doji, and if I come back in and look at the S&P, it's actually higher this week so far. So we're probably going to be slight gains, doji type gains for the week. And then next week, we're going to see the volume start to pick up again, and we're going to see the players come back to work, and we're going to see this market either find a reason to move higher and press higher with buyers willing to pay more at higher and higher prices, right? Or we're finally going to see that retrace. And at this point, we are extended, but the longer we hang here without falling, right, the potential is, and I'll go back to the NDX, the potential is that we're actually setting up to go higher again. You know, and you may get one kind of a fake out move down and then up, but right now, if you can go sideways and build out a range up here, you know how I talk about ranges all the time, right? If I pop this in and look at it from a range perspective, right now you got a little range up here, you have this range here, right? And then you have the ranges underneath it. Actually, it's there's probably a range here, and then they're trying to build one up here. That's probably the better way to draw this. Take that one away, and this one inside of it, the little one here. So they're trying to build out a range up here that's roughly equal, and then you have the one at the bottom. So, you know, right now it's range trades, right? And right now, as long as it holds up here, you know, it can go make a higher range, and that's true here, and it's true on all of them. So, you know, a few days sideways actually takes some of the angle of ascent away and makes it more viable for this thing to continue, because now it's doing a 45-degree angle. So you get the spurt, you don't let anybody in, now you kind of go 45 degree, and then maybe you shoot up again, right? That's the sort of thing this market loves to do. Get your V-shapes and keep going. Folks, I will do a show tomorrow night. Off Sunday, Monday, back with you on Tuesday. If you're a member, of course, there will be no weekend broadcast this week. I will send out you know, the normal comments on Friday morning, but after that I'll be taking off and taking a long weekend myself. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for being there. Have a great night. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Until then, I'm LA. This is, and it was, your daily Neo Wrap. Have a great night. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.